With that horrible speech Donald Trump gave this weekend, let me just show you what else he's been posting on his social media platform or what his surrogates have been promoting. Then I want to compare it to what President Biden's been doing, saying, promoting, and what President Biden's surrogates have been doing. Then I want to talk to you about the results from the EU election, where once again, all of the projections overestimated what the right wing was going to do. All the polls were wrong, and the right wing in the EU election actually had a very, very bad day over the weekend. But just take a look at some of this blasphemous stuff that Trump is promoting. Endorsed by Jesus Christ, and it says the Holy Bible, and then it's the Trump campaign logo. And then Roger Stone, one of Donald Trump's surrogates, says, "This drives the atheistic, godless communists crazy." There's something called the separation of church and state. And that behavior right there of this cult worship of Donald Trump is so weird and should never have any place in our politics at all. Donald Trump then posted on his social media the following, which is just beyond weird as well, too. Trump writes, "Obviously, I never said that dead soldiers are losers and suckers." Yeah, you did. You know how we know that? Your former chief of staff, distinguished retired military general as well, John Kelly, said you said that. It was your chief of staff who said you did it. Numerous other sources, but your chief of staff. Donald Trump then says, "Who would say such a thing? It was made up disinformation by radical left Democrats and Trump haters working with a failing magazine just like Russia, 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 Ukraine, Ukraine, Ukraine." I mean, these are the rantings and ravings of just an absolute madman. By the way, he's still posting on a fairly frequent basis over the weekend mistrial based on that, like, right-wing MAGA malicious prankster who was posting things on the New York court's website. He's still running with that as well, which is just kind of typical, Trumpian stuff. Do want to point this out as well, though. Love this move by the Biden campaign. The Biden campaign welcomed Donald Trump to Vegas by taking over the homepage of the Las Vegas Review Journal. And when you went to the homepage, it said, "Donald Trump, convicted felon, a disaster for Nevada's economy, a threat to America." Also, the very powerful Culinary Union in Las Vegas put out a very important statement as well, calling out Donald Trump and calling out his lies and calling Donald Trump a convicted felon. Here's the statement by the Culinary Union Secretary Treasurer. "For decades, the Culinary Union," again, Culinary Union in Vegas is as one of the most powerful unions. "For decades, the Culinary Union has fought for tipped workers' rights and against unfair taxation. Relief is definitely needed for tip earners, but Nevada workers are smart enough to know the difference between real solutions and wild campaign promises from a convicted felon." Very well said right there as well. Just turning to the results quickly from the EU and with all of these projections. As Simon Rosenberg points out, the three establishment European parties are at 56% here. It's actually better than anybody had anticipated. Brent Peabody writes the following. He says, "The far right was set to make huge gains over the weekend in what Politico dubbed Europe's Trump moment. The reality is they will finish with less than 10% of the seats. A lesson to us Americans. The only polls that matter are those on election day." Simon Rosenberg also posted, "You know who else has been underperforming public polls over the last few years? Trump in his GOP primaries this year and MAGA in elections across the U.S. Far right is just too ugly for too many." And here's from what The Economist had to say. For all the drama in Berlin and especially Paris, the projections of a broader hard right takeover of the EU do not appear to have materialized. As results came in, projections were for the combined hard right forces within the parliament, including the various allies of the AfD, the RN, and of Giorgia Meloni, the Prime Minister of Italy, to increase their share of seats only slightly from 17% to 19%. That is well short of the polls that at one point saw them match the center-right. In many countries, they performed short of expectations. Geert Wilders, the hard-right firebrand, who won most votes in the national elections in November, lost to centrist adversaries this time. In Belgium, the xenophobic Vlaams Belang failed to top the polls as expected. The Sweden Democrats, also on the hard right, had a rough night. Taking a look at some more of these posts here, by the way, is what Anthony Scaramucci said, which I think is spot on. The Tom Suozzi special election, remember that was in Long Island, New York's 3rd congressional district. That was the George Santos seat where Santos was kicked out. The Tom Suozzi, Democrat Suozzi special election victory has foretold President Biden's reelection. Lots of MAGA nonsense on social media and supposedly close polls. Then when it mattered, the MAGA candidate got crushed. The majority of the country will say no to Trump's madness. And look, sometimes I see in the comments people saying, oh, well, then why is Donald Trump in the polls? He's actually not up in the polls. I mean, don't get me wrong. There was some good polling data out there for him. But to say he's up in the polls is, again, buying a narrative which just doesn't exist. You know that I'm not someone who talks about polls all the time. But when you look at the likely or registered voters themselves versus just regular people who with party affiliation, Biden is usually up 2 to 4 points. I mean, even in the most recent YouGov CBS poll, when you look at the registered and likely voters, President Biden is up, and President Biden's up there in the battleground states, which is significant momentum from where that specific poll was. When you take the aggregate of polls as well, whether it's likely voters or even just a general aggregate, President Biden is up or it's tied. But to say Trump is up is not the case. But as you go to likely voters, that's where Biden thrives. And because here's the thing, I think people look at normalcy and want it. And we know when we see Donald Trump's speech, what's going on. Like, I don't even want to play all of the stuff here because I did that in a prior video. I'm not going to do a whole recap of everything Trump said. I don't even want to hear his voice right now, really. And I'm sure you don't really want to hear it either. But look at this, look at this list that I made, and I'll read it in my own voice so you don't have to hear his. This is the list of the things that Donald Trump said at the Vegas speech. And you can go and look at my other summary video if you want to watch it. Trump tells crowd, this is what he said on June 9th in Vegas. I don't care about you. I just want your vote. I don't care. Donald Trump tells contractors who set up the mic and teleprompter, you did a shitty job. I'm not going to pay you. Trump tells the audience to choose unaliving themselves over voting for President Biden. Donald Trump complains about the teleprompter again. Donald Trump asks, do I get electrocuted or do I jump over by the shark? Trump says he aced a dementia test twice, which is not easy to ace. Donald Trump says there has never been people treated more horrifically than the January 6th hostages. That's how he refers to them as. Donald Trump calls a prosecutor a dumb son of a bitch. Trump complains that the media is focused on the health of the crowd when they should be focused on his health because he's sweating a lot in the heat in Vegas. He glitches multiple times, the speech ends, and then he's whisked away on a private jet paid for by donors. And then we have all the receipts in that video. You probably have seen it already. Go through our feed if you want to watch it. I don't really want to hear his voice on this one, but I do want to show you this because I think this is important. Compare that to, here's what President Biden's posting. In honor of National Gun Violence Awareness Day, the White House illuminates orange in memory of those killed or injured by gun violence. My administration will continue to fight to make our communities safer, using every tool at our disposal to address this crisis. President Biden writes, "The United States and France are united by the greatest of causes: democracy, liberty, equality, opportunity, and freedom. Our friendship has endured for nearly 250 years and will for years to come." And then President Biden posts this video. He says, "More than 100 years ago, Americans fought for our freedom in World War I. We must honor their service and sacrifice by defending our democracy today and every day." I think very, very powerful words there. Also, here, let's play that video.
You know, I think it as a measure of a country's support for democratic values that they honor those who've risked their lives and lost their lives. And Jill and I wanted to come and pay our respects.
You know, and at the same time he's doing that, you have Donald Trump also promoting the following: "I'm voting for the convicted felon, Trump 2024. That's what they're wearing. "I'm voting for the convicted felon." That's, you know, they have shirts promoting "I'm with convicted felon." I mean, come on. What are we talking about here? Also, I'm sure you know Donald Trump has his first probation officer meeting today. He's going to do that on Zoom. I've asked people in the court system, and he's allowed to do that by Zoom. And that occurs not infrequently in the New York court system. I was wondering that myself. We'll keep you posted every step of the way, folks. Let's get this knowledge out. I feel momentum right now. I feel strong momentum right now. Let's get the truth out. Hit subscribe. Let's get to 3 million subscribers. Have a wonderful day.
Love this video? Make sure you stay up to date on the latest breaking news and all things Midas by signing up to the MeidasTouch newsletter at MeidasTouch.com/newsletter.